I was originally gonna do a reaction to the entire season of Andor Season 2, but they decided to release bundles of Andor and did, you know, 3 episodes a week to represent the years passing by. I mean, it makes sense, I guess, logistically speaking, but I don't have time. I just don't have the time to react to 3 episodes a week and keep up with it. So instead I decided to try to do a like end of the season review, my thoughts on the entire season, instead of doing reactions to each individual episode. But I'm here today. I just needed to jump in real quick and give my thoughts on episode 8 and episode 9, which are some of the craziest episodes on television I think I've ever witnessed. Okay, that's a little dramatic, but like it's definitely up there as some like the best. Just like everything about the episodes were so good, and I'll get into it, but I just really needed to talk about it. I'm kind of glad that I didn't do a reaction to this entire season, just because I'm a type of person that sometimes I need to sit with something for a couple days before I can like truly formulate a thought on it. But especially with like content that is as heavy as Andor is, there's a lot of messaging and themes within Andor, and it is very prevalent to things that are happening in today's times. And also like, especially with like episode 8, your girl was quiet. I was not speaking a word. I was immersed in what I was seeing, and I was truly gagged. So I probably wouldn't have had anything to add anyways at the moment. It is very rare that like after an episode plays that like I just sit there in silence for a little bit. The first thought that I had, and is this dramatic? Maybe, I don't know. But, you know, the show's doing what it needs to do. If like my first thought after seeing that is like, I just witnessed a genocide. So this entire season we've been building up this storyline with the Gormans. Now I knew nothing about the Gorman massacre. I do believe it's like an event that if you're a big Star Wars fan, you probably have already heard of it. I had no clue that was gonna happen. So this episode acted as the climax to all of that tension that has been building up between the Empire and the Gorman Rebellion. Now, the Empire has been doing some really shady shit, particularly with Deidre. She's been slowly planting some seeds. Not only is she helping the Empire gain a foothold in this planet to mine and extract the special material within the earth, but she is also building up this narrative that the rebel forces within Gorman are like these horrible, basically like a terrorist organization, right? So she is planting these seeds and trying to twist the narrative. We actually see like these news channels, or like broadcasters, I don't know what the heck they are in the Star Wars universe, but they're painting this particular narrative that, you know, tensions are rising, the Imperial forces are starting to set up blockades, there's going to be possible riots in the streets. These Gorman, you know, they might not be here with the best of intentions, and they're just like painting this very particular picture, which I think is very interesting, like parallels to real life, you know, once again with media and fake news and, you know, situations like that, and definitely biases within our own media coverage and things like it just gets you to think about certain things. Even though I didn't know from like a Star Wars history standpoint that there was going to be a Gorman massacre, I figured there was going to be something along those lines just based off of everything that they've been setting up previously. There was a previous Gorman massacre, and they had a memorial erected for that in order to remember, and slowly over time the Empire has been overshadowing that memorial, and I thought it was really interesting because it kind of represents the whole sentiment of like if that popular saying of like those who forget history are doomed to repeat it. So I thought that was really interesting. They've been playing with that a little bit, so I kind of figured like we're about to get into like a little bit of a massacre territory here. A very interesting scene that happened very early on was between Deidre and Pardigast, where they're discussing the plans to move forward, like it's gonna happen tomorrow. And he kind of like notices her, and he's like, "You seem animated," which I thought was a really interesting way of like, basically she's showing too many emotions, and it got me like really thinking. I'm like, this is why the Empire got word to where it is, you know? And this is why the rebels, they struggle with coming together and coming up with a plan that will bring them all together and effectively fight back against the Empire. It's because they are very emotional, and that's not like a bad thing or anything, but it is like you have a bunch of people in a room who are very angry at their situation, and they all have different ideas and they're all passionate, and that does lead to conflict. Empire, on the other hand, they are very anti-emotion. You just follow orders. That is what makes them so organized and effective in their brutality, because they do not have to care about the pain that they inflict, or they do not have to worry about the morality behind the propaganda campaign that they're running, or twisting the narrative, or framing the story to fit whatever goals that they have. Like, that's why they're so effective. This entire episode is so freaking tense, cutting between all the different characters, and they're all sort of like figuring out things at different times. I'm sorry, I do not remember names very well, but the older guy, he seems to be like the de facto leader of the rebels. He's like noticing like, uh-oh, this is a trap. I don't know if it's his daughter, I really don't know the relationship, but it seems like they're related somehow. The younger girl, she's like, no, we need to speak up. We need, this is within our rights, within our human rights to have voices, and we need to use them now. Majority of people also agree with her. Once the Imperial forces start barricading and troops start coming in, they decide to start protesting. And honestly, they keep it really peaceful, but it never got to that point where they laid the first hand. And that is okay, because the Empire's got it covered. They did something that like I feel like happens a lot in today's society, we just don't know about it, and they did something that like I've seen in media before. The most recent example that I can think of is The Boys season 4 they did it, where they provoke this protest to happen, and then you know, you kill somebody on your own side and then blame it on the other side, and then you have the excuse now to retaliate against the other side, and it makes you look like the good guy. So that's exactly what they do in this situation. Of course, you know, all the media that's there, they're already painting this narrative. Add that together and you get the perfect reason. Not only do you get the planet that you wanted this entire time, but you also get to set up the rebels and paint them as the bad guys. And you also got to commit a massive genocide and get away with it. I think one of the most shocking things about this episode was the character of Cyril, because I did not expect his character to go down this route. I really thought we were going to go down a redemption arc for him, and I was like, oh, maybe he'll join the rebellion. I was not expecting to not only feel bad for him, but like really feel like this hollowing feeling of like, this is just a tragedy. And I never thought I would feel that way about this character, because I really didn't like him. The way that he began to realize that he has been lied to basically for his entire life, and he's slowly starting to uncover the truth. And I love whenever, you know, during the whole massacre scene, we cut back to his face a couple of, well, more than a couple, but like a few times, you know, we could shift between a few characters, and his face is just like confusion. It's just like a lot of processing, like a lot of mental processing happening. You think he's finally gonna get it, and then he sees Cassian, and it's like all he sees is red. And it's like, oh, you were so close, you were so close. And that is ultimately what led to his death. And what was even like more brutal about it, like I love the brawl between the two of them. In the setting of like this major event happening. Cyril gets the better of Cassian, and then he, you know, as he's pointing his gun at him, Cassian looks at him and he's like, who are you? Like that. Oh my god. He spent so long. He spent how many years? How many years? Probably, oop, broke my chair. Only for him to finally meet him and him to say like, who even are you? And then to get murdered like right there. That was just, I was actually shocked with that. I did not expect them to do that. I know this show is not afraid of killing off, like they killed off Andor's friend. So I know they're not afraid to kill off people, but I just wasn't expecting it, like the way that they did it. And then of course it being like such a tragedy. Like it was, I really thought he was gonna like, I don't know, not even like necessarily join the rebellion, but like work hard for redemption. No, this is reality. That's ironic that I say that about a TV show, but you know what I mean? Like this is more realistic as to what would happen. Like somebody who acts like this would not get a second chance in a time of war. But yeah, the actual like massacre itself, wow. Production value, like everybody behind the scenes, by the way, the entire creative team, they did so freaking well. Like everything about this, the tension, the direction, the acting, the music, the sound, like everything together just worked so perfectly. And my freaking camera's going out of focus and I don't even know why. And it just made for like this really great almost hour of television where I could not look away. Building up that tension, having the protesters come out onto the streets, having certain characters figure out that something's not right, having Cassian just watching, and having Cyril begin to formulate his own thoughts for once, and all these things happening. The Imperial forces are like gearing up. What are they? The KX units are sitting there looking creepy. You know, you think they're goofy looking, and then one of them looks at you and you're like, okay, maybe I don't fuck with you. You know, everything is just like slowly building. And then you have like the actual moment. You have the sniper on the roof, the Imperial sniper on the roof, who takes a shot at one of his own men to incite an official riot. It is a very intense moment leading up to that. And then the actual massacre itself was just pure horror. I was actually kind of shocked that they showed some of the things that they did. Like it doesn't show as much as you think it should, right? Like if I get bashed in the head, maybe I should show a little blood. I get it, it's Disney, but innocent people getting shot down and just like being picked off, it was kind of disturbing to see. And I'm dramatic, okay? I am being 100% literal when I say that this scene, this like last half of this episode made me sick to my stomach. I think a part of me was like, this is like stuff that really happens. Even if you don't want to think about current events, whatever. This is definitely something that we've seen repeated constantly throughout history. I'm sure if you're watching this, you have a different example than I do. Literally pick a country, and I'm sure they had something very similar to this. This is the unfortunate truth, and I think that's why I had such a physical reaction to it, is because I'm like, I could imagine it happening in real life. Getting picked off is one thing, but then you send in the KX units and they are terrifying. We always knew that they kind of like were a little rough, okay? But I didn't know that they were so rough that they could literally slam your body into a wall and you are dead. And they show it with a character that you're familiar with. I mean, you're not really close with her, but like, you know, you're very familiar with her. And she just dies and you just don't expect it. And it's like, whoa, these things are brutal. So the entire massacre itself plays out. You pretty much see the entire thing. Absolutely horrific. What made it even worse for me personally was when, I don't know her name. Okay, there's a lot of characters. I know the main ones, but Willman's girl, when she gets on the radio and she starts calling out for help. The cherry on the top for me, where it was just like, it really drove home how horrific this was. She said something like, "We are being murdered. If anybody is out there, please help us." And there was something so gut-wrenching about hearing that. And it was like it wasn't just like the words itself. I think it was like the sound design, like coming through like a radio, and then you're cutting between like Cassian, he's crying, you're cutting between like people, survivors trying to survive, you're cutting between the one leader of the rebellion who is just sitting there in shock and like despair. Everything was so well done and you felt that emotional impact. My main takeaway from all this, okay, more things need to be able to invoke these types of emotions within people. I feel like media a lot of times nowadays they kind of like strip emotion out of it. You know, brain rot. Like it really is a lot of media nowadays. It's just like, what am I even watching? I'm just watching to pass the time, to get a quick dopamine hit, and that's about it. And then I'm on to the next. This one is sticking with me, and I just needed to talk about it. And then I do want to touch on episode 9 too as well, because I think it pairs very well with episode 8, in which we get Mon Mothma's speech. Let me tell you, I rewatch these episodes, by the way. I rarely do that. I rarely do a lot of things. Rarely do that. I rewatched these 2 episodes because that is how much I was like, I need to see it again. I need to watch this again. Episode 9 was really good as well. Pairs very nicely with episode 8 because you pick up on the government side of things. From the very beginning of that episode, we get like the arrest of, I think, like some sort of Gorman representative. I don't know titles, I don't know names, okay? Listen, when I do my final video, I'll have the actual titles and names, okay? I'm just I'm going off cuff here. He gets arrested and he's like calling out for help. And he's like, are you guys just gonna stand there? Like, somebody help me. And it's like, oh my gosh. And then he's like saying, you know, it's happening to me now, but it's gonna happen to you next if you let this happen. And there was something like, I just knew this episode was gonna be so good. The writers of these speeches know what they're doing. Her speech evokes so much passion and so much truth. This one particular part of her speech, she's like, this was a genocide. And I thought that was such strong wording for her to call it out for what it was. And then listening to the majority of the people get mad as if it was wrong to call it for what it was. I thought that was really interesting, very remnant of today's time. Another part of her speech that I thought was really strong as well was like when she's saying, we let this happen. We helped contribute to this happening. She used the word we, which I thought was really impressive because like she could have easily said like, you guys let this happen. I know, my petty ass, I would have been like, yeah, y'all voted for him, guess what? You get to suffer the consequences of your actions. That would have been me. No, she was like saying, you know, we let this happen. We stood by. We let this person, this force get in. We were meant to represent the people and we have failed them. And I thought that was like really strong messaging, and that I really noticed that. I just really picked that out of all of the things that she was saying. Then she finally names the true villain. I'm sure everybody has an image in their head of somebody that they know that's very similar to that, either current times or throughout history, you know? And she calls him out by name. You know how strong you have to be in that type of position to name drop somebody like that and call him out for what he is. Sometimes it's not easy to tell the truth, you know, especially when everybody else is lying. There's a lot of like risks that go into that. Really good episodes. So yeah, sorry, I just really needed to come in and say some things. I feel like I've been craving for something to get me to feel to get me to feel emotion. No, but like to get me to think about things. So yeah, I'm gonna do a full review of the entire season once it's done. And I'll include some more of my thoughts. Maybe, hopefully I'll be able to articulate it a little bit better. That is going to be it for today's video. So if you enjoyed, please leave a like, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one. So goodbye, and have a nice day. And I have a really good book if you want to learn more about what a fascist regime does. There's this book called How Fascism Works. Actually, there's a lot of books on fascism, honestly, but that's the one that I read. I thought it was really good. It breaks it down in simple terms. Honestly, listen, if you want somebody to get into politics, show them this show.